Making a retrospective video on childhood TV shows is a harder task than I thought, and for one main reason. We all came from the three major networks: Disney, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network. Yet, depending on your age, you probably experienced different eras. You know, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. As a kid born in 2004, I grew up watching late 2000s to mid 2010s television, meaning my taste in entertainment was set by shows like SpongeBob, Power Rangers, Transformers Animated, and Arthur, and plenty more. So I hope you stay with me today as we recollect through some classic childhood TV shows in the second installment of our series, the Chronicles of Nostalgia. Real quick, these are just my client's opinions. There's no need to leave a manifesto in the comments about anything he says. Plus, he never says anything controversial anyways. Alright, on with the video. Oh, also go ahead and subscribe. With all that being said, Disney was hands down the best of the three major networks. Listen, each network had their grasp of my attention for different periods of time, but Disney actually made me want to get into acting. Glad it wasn't Nickelodeon. I mean, think about it. Disney aired original movies every Friday night, had consistent 10 out of 10 sitcoms and cartoons. On top of this, they even gave us the fake and unnecessary TTI stories. You remember those, right? The obviously made up stories about dyslexia or friendship or learning to become a big sister.
5 years ago, so I was 7.
Not nowadays. All that without mentioning, Disney without a doubt had the best theme songs of the big three. It's like Drake said, it's only Big D, and that's video proof.
Pause.
Second thought, he might not be the best person to compare to. All I'm saying is that when it came down to running the game with an iron fist, I don't see how anyone could say it was the other two networks. Sure, Cartoon Network had Teen Titans, the Powerpuff Girls, Adventure Time, Amazing World of Gumball, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Nickelodeon did have Victorious, It's on Rush, iCarly, Fairly Odd Parents, SpongeBob, and Avatar. But Disney had Phineas and Ferb. Let's take it way back. My favorite show when I was young, like I mean preschool age, was undoubtedly Transformers Animated, which is ironic because that's a Cartoon Network show. I believe the series began around the same time that the first live action movie had released, so I was introduced to the franchise at both its peak and also during the most influential time in a child's life. If you watched my last video about the golden age of cinema, then you would have caught that I had previously made mention of owning a bunch of Transformers action figures, and a bunch of those were made up of Transformers animated characters. I'm talking Ratchet, Prowl, Optimus, Bulkhead, and most importantly, Bumblebee. I don't know why I was so infatuated with the character at an early age, but from the jump, he's always been my favorite. I even had my own little headcanon where I imagined Bumblebee as a human to be a black kid, aka me. It was likely something about his youthfulness, high energy, and charm that drew me to the character. Or maybe I just saw myself in Bumblebee. Pause. Regardless, down the line in what must have been kindergarten, I found a Transformers animated book, and in it, they show what the characters would look like as humans. And what do you know? There he was, a black kid, completely solidifying in my mind at least that was me in the show, which in reality is the power of fiction. Funnily enough, the only other show that rivaled Transformers Animated in terms of enjoyability for me at that time was a show called Max and Ruby. Once again, I saw myself in the character of Max, and not just for the superficial reason of, hey, he's cool, I want to be him. I mean, for one, he had an older sister like I did, or like I do. 2, he was quiet like me, even though my dad would beg to differ. And 3, he was the most annoying, obnoxious, mischievous little brother in the world. And according to my sister, I fit that criteria on the daily. Not to mention, the theme song was just great, despite it literally being 3 words repeated over and over again. This show was Peppa Pig before Peppa Pig was a thing. And unlike Peppa Pig, where Gen Alpha can access whenever they feel like opening their iPads, Max and Ruby only came on at a set time, ending at around 12:30 to 1 p.m. The exact same time my kindergarten class let out. So you can imagine the amount of times I just barely missed Max and Ruby because I got home too late. I never got to truly witness Max schemes in person, unless it was a weekend. Getting a little older now, Arthur was a show that I always looked forward to, but never really had a guaranteed way of tuning into. You see, Arthur the Deformed Aardvark only aired on PBS Kids or Channel 10 for me, and this is before my family switched to Cubo and Boomerang, which solely aired cartoons. Around this time, we had Dish and or Xfinity, which only aired PBS Kids until around 1 p.m. After that, it was back to regular PBS, where they aired irrelevant topics like stocks or the political and economic state of the world, which, let's be frank, nobody cares about. So you best believe when I had an opportunity to watch my favorite show, I was gonna take it. Everything about the show was appealing to a 3rd/4th grade Mo. I mean, literally everything from the vibe, the characters, the art style, the music, all the way down to the sound effects. This show created an atmosphere of absolute comfort, and I get nostalgic just thinking about the old cable guide, scrolling through the cable guide to see what would be coming on in the next couple of hours, and getting energized when I saw that Arthur was up next. I even used to do the math to find out how long each episode would be by subtracting the total runtime from the commercial length, just to find out that each episode was like 21 minutes tops. Speaking of commercials, even PBS Kids commercials were wholesome, especially the ones at the end of episodes. Let me jog your memory.
Funding for Arthur is provided by... Every moment of play is a chance.
I can't exactly pinpoint why I love this show and channel as a whole so much, but I always had a fascination as a child with comparing the world I was living in to the perfect world of cartoons. I mean, truly think about it. How often did you see people fighting or cussing growing up? I'm gonna assume you said a lot, but in Arthur, these things are so devious that they had entire plot lines / episodes dedicated to them. If I had to count the number of times alone that I fought my siblings, Arthur dropped DW one time and almost caught a murder charge.
I told you not to touch it!
This show, like many others, was an entrance into a more blissful world, possibly even an escape from reality for some kids. PBS Kids in general was great because it actually taught kids something. Some shows like Word Girl were specifically meant to be a reading / writing aid, while others like Arthur just taught good morals. I'd even watch Word Girl. That was a show my brother liked. But the point is, PBS Kids actually attempted to educate and handle topics in a way that wasn't super ham-fisted and contrived. Unlike the 100th Dharma episode about race relations. Then again, sometimes I didn't want to learn or be morally correct. Sometimes you just gotta turn your brain off and enjoy some senseless fun. And no network was better at accomplishing this goal than... Cartoon Network consisted of nothing but non-stop bangers hour after hour, and I was lucky enough to experience 2 of their great eras. Not that I think they've ever had a bad one. Except whatever that is.
Real quick again. He has no ideas what these shows are. That was just a joke. They were probably actually good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I remember watching Chowder, Ben 10, Amazing World of Gumball, Steven Universe, Pokemon, and reruns of the classics all day long growing up. And controversially, one of my favorite shows around 10 to 12 was actually Teen Titans Go. I was a child, I didn't know any better. And as a 4th to 6th grader, TTG was peak comedy. Realistically, all the show needed to make a kid laugh in 2014 was randomness. A fart joke here, a fight scene there, and randomly throw in a peak musical number, and you got yourself a juvenile classic. No, seriously, this is unironically hard. Of course, now as an adult, I look back at the crass humor and wonder, was I really that immature? And then I watch an Instagram reel and realize, yeah, I still am. I wasn't old enough to see the actually good Teen Titans, so instead of being entertained by the mature, heartfelt, well-written story told by the OG, I got to experience brain-nourishing scenes like this. However, the bane of my existence while watching Cartoon Network was watching the clock approach 8 p.m. You see, Cartoon Network was split into 2 parts. The regular network that aired cartoons that were suitable for children, for the most part. And then Adult Swim, which you've probably seen references to on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. This half was not so suitable for kids. For obvious reasons, I wasn't allowed to watch Adult Swim growing up. So the closer the clock got to 8 p.m. every night was like counting down the days from death row. Yep, that seems like a fair comparison to me. Another reason I dreaded 8 p.m. was because we didn't know where the TV remote was in our room half the time. So on top of Adult Swim coming on and not being able to watch it, not having the ability to change the channel literally meant we were going to bed right then. And I didn't just have a phone to watch TikTok on all night, although it probably would have been Vine. My best bet was to pray I found the remote and switch the channel to Nickelodeon because, not gonna lie, Disney was kind of weak at night, which actually led me to watching quite a few episodes of Full House on Nick at Night. Occasionally, I'd even pop awake at 4 a.m. to the intro of the George Lopez show playing. Just the intro. every time. Funnily enough, I never really chose to watch Nickelodeon as much as the other two channels. After shows like iCarly, Victorious, and Big Time Rush stopped airing, I didn't really find much entertainment value in the network. I was mostly just rewatching the old shows on Netflix, way more than I was watching the actual channel, at least following around 2014 to 2015. Shows like Henry Danger and the Thundermans weren't really cutting it for me, and there's only so many times you can watch reruns of classic SpongeBob before it gets old, even though that is one of the greatest shows of all time. Therefore, Netflix low-key became the hub to consuming some of my favorite shows, both old and new, including some that I didn't even remember, like Courage the Cowardly Dog, which I'm just realizing is a Cartoon Network show. Man, who wrote my script? Cut. That was me. My fault. I didn't mean that was you? Yeah, but you want to tell me why you left your personal thoughts in my script? It was an accident. It won't happen again. I promise. I'm sorry about that. I know it won't. Hey, what are you doing? Wait! I'm a baby! Making me look like an idiot in front of the viewers. Where were we? My dad put me and my siblings onto Courage the Cowardly Dog in late elementary to early middle school age, and boy was I not prepared for some of the things this children's show had in store for us. If you watch any amount of Courage, then you know what I'm talking about. One specific instance that I remember is the return the slab scene. I always found it, and still find it, kind of disturbing when shows try to mesh 2D and 3D animation together, because it's rarely ever done well, and especially back then. So compounding scariness with already disturbing graphics is a recipe for nightmares in millions of children. Now that I think about it, it's kind of crazy that Cartoon Network was able to make a show centered around two old people and a dog living in the middle of nowhere. I feel like my older sister and dad like this show way more than I did, because I always was trying to tune into a different show when we turned on Netflix. A property that I had previously cared nothing about, but once I was pointed towards the right series, I was hooked in the whole franchise. Power Rangers, Jungle Fury, Samurai, and Mystic Force were my top 3 shows for a while, and probably the first series I'd ever binge watched. I mean, just listening to their respective theme songs is once again bringing back nostalgic memories. Memories of wanting to be the Green Ranger, the Black Ranger, the White Ranger, or the Blue Ranger. Pretty much if the character was black or was somebody that rarely showed up, I wanted to be them. And you can say it's trash reasoning, but it'll never be as trash as the show's special effects. Man, I swear these shows used to be top notch when I was a kid. But in rewatching old clips, I could dang near see the green screen, the wires, and the stock explosions. What were the budgets for these shows? If one existed. If I'm being really honest, I don't see what I saw in the show as a child. They're like 60% talking and 40% action. My current TikTok brain can't comprehend a child sitting through this. Let me break down what I mean. The basic structure of a Power Rangers episode goes like this. A new villain is introduced and is wreaking havoc on a town. The Power Rangers are informed and take their sweet time completing a suit-up montage. The Rangers arrive and end up getting whooped so bad and only making it out the fight alive because the villain suddenly retreats or something. They then go learn some life lesson that conveniently relates to the enemy they're fighting.
We'll have to work as a team, even harder.
Boy, if you don't. And practically on cue, the villain strikes again. But this time, the Rangers are better equipped. The foes face off again, and the fight is initially close until the Rangers remember their training and decide to kill off the villain in the most violent and brutal explosion that a PG show can render. Simultaneously, the Rangers turn around and hit their best emote for the camera. Now that you've got the basic formula, all you gotta do is watch, rinse, and repeat for 20-something odd episodes a season, and you've got yourself a franchise with 27 separate spin-offs. You know, this video isn't as Disney dominated as I initially thought it was gonna be. Let's change that. Despite my hard stance on Disney reigning supreme against the other two networks, I'm sure you caught on that I was slightly exaggerating. I still believe Disney is the best at the big three, but I literally had a whole tangent about PBS Kids, so that should just show you my mind is all over the place. When I really sit back and think about what shows had an impact on my life, perception, and aspirations, Disney created quite a few that I can't leave unacknowledged. Whether that's shows from the 2000s like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, That's So Raven, Proud Family, Kim Possible, and Wizards of Waverly Place, to shows from the 2010s like Phineas and Ferb, Good Luck Luck Charlie, Shake It Up, Ant Farm, Lab Rats, Jessie, and too many more from both eras to name outright, their impact personally far outweighs what the other two channels had done for me. I remember me and my sister talking about making it to Hollywood and becoming big time stars like the kids we seen on Jessie, like Karen Brar, Sky Jackson, Cameron Boyce, and Peyton List. I can't even tell you where or when those dreams began, because prior to that, the only career path I saw myself taking was becoming a professional soccer player. That didn't pan out. Though after seeing the behind the scenes of production sets, how shots were filmed, the cast, the crew, everything, we realized that was something we wanted to partake in. Coincidentally enough, the advent of the internet, blogging, and more specifically YouTube, was on the rise in the mainstream. And with more ease/public access to the internet, a new route to everything we've seen on the screen became possible. We just didn't know it at the time. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't me saying Disney is responsible for the creation of my channel or anything, because it's not. But it is me saying that I took the fascination I had towards the production of Disney shows as a child and shaped it into my own unique way. If anything, equal amount of flowers, if not more, should be given to the OG YouTubers I watched coming up and the ones I still look to for inspiration. Plus, there are random thoughts in my head that create the chaotic ramblings into video form that you guys seem to like. Okay, back to the shows. A lot of the shows that I previously mentioned were things that I tuned into on my own volition, either out of curiosity, stumbling upon them, or they came on randomly. However, the same cannot be said about anything that had to do with Tyler Perry. Lord knows the amount of plays, TV shows, and movies I've seen this grown man in a wig acting. I can't lie, they were kind of entertaining. And one of my favorite series growing up was actually Tyler Perry's House of Pain. But there's a difference between choosing to watch something and being forced to watch the same Meet the Browns episodes every day. If you recognize this,
Made in Georgia.
your mom or grandma probably forced you to watch too much Tyler Perry growing up. From what I remember, these shows were heavily comedic, but didn't refrain from tackling heavy topics. For those who've never seen a Tyler Perry production, just imagine what I said about how Arthur handled topics that make it Christian, Black, and more mature. These shows follow the same tried and true formula that sitcoms before it have, but they stood out, in my house at least, because they starred an all-black cast. Same thing applies to The Bernie Mac Show, Blackish, The Cosby Show, My Wife and Kids, etc. To some, they may have just been another sitcom, but to me, at least, they represented another side of black media and life that I hadn't really seen represented. A lifestyle where we weren't constantly on the back foot. Don't get me wrong, most still tackled the struggles of being a black family in America, even in a middle to upper class environment, but that wasn't the main focus of these shows. They presented a comfortable life of respectable people with grand ambitions living in a good neighborhood, and the characters were black. Not black characters or black caricatures. Not to mention, these shows were just genuinely good. Similar to what early YouTube gaming/family channels had done for me as a child, television represented a life outside of the one we have become accustomed to. And in my opinion, the late 80s to the early 2010s will forever be mine golden age of television.